right. Welcome to another edition of Vegas Bad Boys, a podcast. I'm your host, DJ Impact. I got the Vegas Bad Boys here with me, and it's good to see all of you here. We're here with our 3 count, and we're going to get right to it. Let's start with WrestlingNews.co titled Changes Expected for WWE Raw. Vince McMahon got the message loud and clear. And apparently, on Sunday's Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave Meltzer, confirmed that WWE got the message that changes are coming. Although no one seems to know what the changes are going to be, it's definitely got to be something. The story that the USA Network said that they wanted more dark or adult content, he says that's not true. But one thing for sure, they wasn't happy with the particular numbers that were coming in for these past weeks. In fact, it says that the expectation of Raw is supposed to get and is well below that expectation. Now, the number is not bad, but they're not getting paid $265 million a year to do AEW numbers. They're WWE. They're supposed to do higher numbers. We've been talking about how Raw has been appearing or appealing to us as of late, and it seems like it hasn't been as good, fellas. Just for fun and giggles, right? Let's say Vince McMahon decided to call each one of you up and said, hey, what could we do to improve our numbers? And you got to come up with this grand idea that what you think Raw needs, and this would be the winning solution. Let me start over with you, Simon Street. Let's help Raw get back to the numbers that they need to be. What would you change? What would you do?
I would tell Vincent Kennedy McMahon, I said, when do you plan on taking your final rest and resting in peace? No, I'm just playing. I wouldn't say that to him. That's really grim. But on all seriousness, though, I do think what Raw needs is a shift in a total different direction that's not the same as what they're doing with SmackDown.
Vince McMahon says, tell me right now what I need to do so I can get the numbers to get in the right directions. What I do.
The right direction is go ahead and push the fucking envelope on adult content, but make it to where it makes sense. Don't just put shit out there just because you want to push the envelope, and have it to where you just push the fucking envelope. What do you have to lose? Push the fucking envelope. If it's taking it back to fucking the Attitude Era, then fine. Take it to the Attitude Era. Try the shit out, because you can't do any worse than what you're doing right now.
Okay. I mean, it did say in the article, the story that USA Network said that they wanted more dark or adult content. That's not true. So I don't know how much dark or adult content they can do if that's...
They haven't been dark enough. Bring back Jerry the King Lawler and say puppies every 20 seconds. And that's a good start.
That's not dark. That's according to the initial reporting on this, was that USA wanted it dark, but an adult content, but they didn't want sexualization.
Well, that's an American problem, first and foremost, because sexualization is so bad. But let's see somebody's wig get split open on accident, and that's just great for freaking ratings. You can't have one without the other. I say push the envelope with a lot of matches, but I also say part of being an adult is sexuality. I mean, that's what separates a boy from a man, or a woman, a little girl from a woman, is some sexuality, like a deeper, provocativeness.
Dude, you have a kid who's in that young demographic who watches the show. Do you want?
I don't let my son watch Raw. We watch SmackDown and NXT.
Let me jump over to you, Sensei Steve. Vince McMahon says, look, man, we've got to get our numbers back up. And I believe that you may have the key that may help us do that. What idea would you give him that could possibly get us back in the right direction?
Go back to the basics with engaging storylines that are cohesive and have continuity from week to week, and don't insult the intelligence of your viewer. Really simple. Really simple stuff. I'm not going to say that you have to change the course of your entire booking scheme. I'm not going to say that you have to change the rating of your product. I'm not saying that you have to change the way that everything is presented or, the camera cuts or anything like that, because honestly, that stuff, that'll happen in time. The most important thing right now is you are a professional wrestling product. You need to appeal to a professional wrestling audience. Honestly, this past week, AEW Dynamite, which is, as we've said, competes with WWE's third tier developmental brand. They actually had more viewers in the 18 to 49 demographic than Monday Night Raw. That's a problem. I don't care who the hell you are. I don't give a shit about how much you want to drink the WWE Kool-Aid. That's a problem. When AEW, who, as we've said on this show, is a third tier competitor or competes with WWE's third tier brand, and they're pulling in more viewers in the key money demographic. Honestly, take a couple of pages from AEW. Start doing some things with continuity and don't insult your fans' intelligence. That's it.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move over to you, Matt Michaels, and get what you think. Vince McMahon decides that he coming over to you because you may have what it takes to help build Raw back to where it should be. And let me just start off by saying, don't say get rid of Drew McIntyre. Okay, go.
That's horrible.
You can say that. I'm just messing with you.
No, I really, and I'm surprised this hasn't come up. And the brand split. Utilize all your talent.
Very good point.
I mean, that's it. That's it. That's the only solution I see is if you've got people interested in them on Friday, have some of those guys on Monday. That's it, man. Because the fact of the matter is I don't know if any of this shit is true. Obviously, if Meltzer said it, then
it's true.
It's true. So yeah.
Because he talks to the burning bush on top of the mountain.
Well, yeah. Or in this case, the burning fiend. The honest answer is that so they went to bed with Fox and knew that they were going to have to pull ratings in on SmackDown by doing that. And with that, Raw has not become a priority anymore. And if you think about it, it feels like Raw is the third priority because NXT, does consistently well in terms of their product, but NXT is not looked at as part of canon, right? It's more so just SmackDown and Raw for the quote unquote main roster. So, hey, that could be a potential, especially because, you brought like Drew McIntyre over to mess with Roman before Survivor Series and stuff. So you bought someone over onto SmackDown, I just get rid of the brand shit at this point. And you know what? You're going to end up having guys who are underutilized, and you already have guys who are underutilized anyway. And if you ended up letting a lot of people go, now there are companies for them to join where they could get paid, and probably not be on TV, on a different company. So I don't know, man. I think that would probably help a lot. Otherwise, the big question that Steve put on there is wrestling product. Um, they haven't been a wrestling company since probably 1978 or 79, you know, right after Bob Black, so 83. They've been an entertainment company from that point on. And for as much as you've seen good matches, you also can, you know, look back and go, there is just a lot of bullshit they've done. And there's some innovative, cool shit they've done.
Yeah.
But that's it, man. They're just an entertainment company. You know, it goes through its ebb and flow. And I think that the, you know, too much dire straits is put on the number not being great on Raw. And like I've said before, hey, if USA doesn't want it, then someone else is going to give them the money to make that product.
Well, and it's not like I mean, I'm assuming that USA, they're still. I mean, I mean, it said in the article. I mean, the numbers are still decent. It's just that it's not where it used to be. So it's not like, you know, they're dropping, you know, becoming, I don't know how it works. I guess in 10th place on USA. They're probably still holding their own as to where they're currently at, but they would like to be back to where they used to be.
Well, sure. And I'd like to be 22 years old again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, hey, you know, the thing.
The only problem with that is USA says WWE should fix it and can fix it back to the old ways where you can't go back to 22.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm questioning if USA is even saying it.
Okay.
That's the thing. I trust Dave Meltzer about as much as I trust you know, a Billy Goat with you know, a
Billy
child.
So. Wow. Billy Goat.
Yeah, he isn't. I don't think he is a big fan of WWE. So, you know, I think that's kind of been notated.
Yeah,
so,
and he's probably not a big fan of me either. So we got that going for us, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, let's jump over to our second story, right? Which is from Forbes.com. Titled WWE and AEW stars who will define pro wrestling in 2021. Now, here's another guy. Let me get this guy, Blake, who you can tell is he's a big fan of AEW and probably not a big fan of WWE, but that's okay. He starts off going how the numbers are really not looking good for WWE, and AEW is you know, they're the new fresh product that is gaining closer to, you know, becoming to the top. They're not the top. They probably won't become pretty soon, but they're moving that way towards that. Nevertheless, he says that these AEW and WWE stars will be the one who make the biggest impact, and as a result, determine if the tide truly changes in the world of pro wrestling in 2021. The names he named was Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar. Sting.
For Raw. Yeah, you got to say the.
Yes, WWE Raw. Thank you, sir. Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar. For AEW, Sting and Kenny Omega. And for WWE SmackDown, Roman Reigns and Sasha Banks. All right, so pretty much, question is for you guys is, do you agree with Blake here as the stars who would define pro wrestling in 2021? Do you agree with this, or would you remove a name? Would you add a name? What would you say, Simon Street?
Are we doing them show by show as you mentioned them?
I mean, if you want.
As far as like Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar, I agree with the Drew McIntyre, whether or not he being on the show or not. In 2021, well, I definitely will see some changes happen. But regards to Brock Lesnar, I mean, I don't know. Unfortunately, due to history, they probably will. So I'll give them that. I agree with the Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar. Sting and Kenny Omega. I don't feel like that's really accurate for 2021.
Who would you say?
I would still say MJF. And I'm going to say somebody I'll probably get laughed at is Starks. I think what AEW chooses to do with those two, you could have two really good heels in the company. I know that's unfounded with the whole framework of how many people you're supposed to have heels or not, but I think those two, what they do in 2021 will be entertaining, and I think it'll free up other things on that show. That's just my opinion. It's SmackDown, Roman Reigns, Sasha Banks. I 100% agree with that. Two names I would add to that, if I can, would be Bianca Belair. I think that if they're giving her a launch pad, but what does she do with it? I think that'll be great. And I'm gonna actually say Bayley, because what Bayley's doing with Bianca Belair currently right now, having Bayley kind of getting these matchups on the women's talent on that show could definitely do more good than harm. And that's it.
Yeah. Let me go over to you, Sin City. I mean, these are stars. Blake from Forbes says that will define pro wrestling in 2021. Again, he mentions for Raw, Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar; for AEW, Sting and Kenny Omega; and for SmackDown, Roman Reigns and Sasha Banks. Would you agree with what he says there, or would you add, or would you subtract someone?
I would definitely say that Lesnar is not going to be much of a factor in 2021. So okay. I disagree with that one. It all depends on how they want to spin the Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt thing. Mm-hmm. If they choose to obviously have Randy Orton be come out of this on top and pursue yet again the Drew McIntyre championship. Oh my God, dude. I don't know how many more times I can deal with seeing those two wrestle for the championship. I can't. It seriously, 2020 burned me out on that shit. So unfortunately, I will agree. I think they're going to keep the title on McIntyre for a little while, for better or for worse. And I think that the other name that you throw in there is Randy Orton. For AEW, I sure as shit hope that it's not Sting. I swear to God, if he is doing, a lot of in-ring competing and things like that, then that is defeating the purpose of actually bringing Sting in. He should not be competing in the ring on a regular basis. I would agree with Kenny Omega. I think that Kenny will be driving things. But the other name that I would put in there instead of Sting is actually someone that Sting is going to be mentoring, and that's Darby Allin. I think Darby Allin, we will see him have a very solid 2021, and he could. I don't know if they're going to look at world championship caliber matches from him, or if they're going to move him into that bracket. But I see him being with that TNT championship for quite a while. SmackDown, Roman Reigns, I would agree with that. And quite frankly, Sasha Banks, I would agree with that as well. SmackDown is doing the right things in terms of spotlighting their champions and, making them, I don't want to say a cut above everybody, but you genuinely feel like as if they're at the top of the mountain. Whereas on Raw, you do not feel that way.
Yeah. All right. Let's go over to you over here, Matt Michaels. You agree with Blake, or would you make some changes?
So Blake here says he specializes in the analysis of WWE, AEW, and pro wrestling, having done so since 2010. Uh-huh. He's an LSU grad with a degree in journalism and a minor in English, and I have a master's degree in educational leadership. Okay. Previous stops includes Bleacher Report, Sportskeeda, and the LSU Focus Tigers Weekly.
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with Raw and go. Why the fuck even bring up Brock Lesnar? Because we don't know anything about his contract status. We don't know anything about him. If he comes in, great for them. But if he comes in, he's going to SmackDown, because that's where the money lies is SmackDown, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm going to say that you take Drew McIntyre, just toss him, throw in the Fiend, everything Bray Wyatt's doing. He is key to the success of Raw right now. Also, Charlotte Flair.
Mm.
Her comeback is going to be very, very important for that women's division. Which we can also potentially say that if I think Becky would be coming back to SmackDown because Seth's on SmackDown. So I think it's safe to say Charlotte, unless Ronda comes back, then you have a question if she'd come back to, again, same SmackDown or Raw. But I think those are the two names. Okay, so AEW, it's really interesting here. Is he says in this article, likewise, the pressure is on Sting, who first advertised appearance on AEW, drew huge numbers last week, to live up to the hype of being the biggest legend in AEW. One who is expected to appear regularly, actually wrestle, and ensure that AEW Dynamite continues to run roughshod over NXT every Wednesday. In other words, the two most important stars in AEW right now are Sting and Omega. Sting is one of them. What the fuck? Blake, I gotta say, I have friends who went to LSU, and you, sir, are no representation of the actual smart people who go to LSU.
Damn.
No, what the fuck? The guy, first of all, the guy's been on TV for 3 episodes, right? Whatever it's been now. Hasn't said a goddamn word. Apparently, Blake is expecting him to wrestle on a regular occasion. This guy's just out of his fucking mind. If you want your company to succeed, then you're looking at MJF continuing his projection and not Starks. You're looking at Sammy. Sammy, man. That's your future. Those two guys right there. That's your future. SmackDown. Listen, Roman Reigns obviously is by far, I think, the most important cog in any company right now. As he goes, that's where the money goes right now. Sasha is, again, she's great. Bailey's work has been great. And the question is, if Ronda or Becky comes back, it will probably fall on their shoulders because they're probably going to get the push of the women's division on them. So I think my biggest problem with this article that he didn't say anything about NXT. Yet he says how they're burying them, but NXT has probably and by the way, SmackDown too, if I had to take out Roman just for the fact that, he's so over with what he's doing, Sammy. Put a fucking strap on him and just let him go, man.
Yeah.
But NXT is really the thing here that just blows my mind that he fucking ignored. Because in reality, you have Rhea, absolutely Rhea is on top of her fucking game. And then, you've got who I think Kyle O'Reilly is the fucking next phase.
Yep.
I really think that let him run with the company for a little bit.
Okay.
So I think that would be your key to success there. But, bringing up names like Sting, it's like, come on, dude. Give them some credit of, even Moxley makes more sense than Sting. It's fucking ridiculous.
He bought into the hype, man. He
bought into the fact that he recognizes a fucking name.
Right. Sorry, Blake.
Embarrassment. I'm sorry for all you LSU people out there who have to listen to this jackass.
You know what's interesting enough? I think my aunt still works for LSU. You probably might know him. I'm not even lying to you. I'm gonna drop his name and see if she may know him. I don't know. It's a large campus, so you know.
Find out if his ass wants to come on the fucking show. Get his fucking obviously.
Hey, I tried to reach out to him once, to remember, and he just never responded.
That's because you're a fan. That's why.
Oh.
You love his articles.
If you can get your aunt to do it, that'd be even better.
Well, I don't know exactly what she does. She just worked for LSU forever. So I'll run it by her and see what's up.
Oh, man. All right. We go over to our third topic. And this is coming from two sites. The first one is essentiallysports.com, which is titled Pro Wrestling Analysts Give Fascinating Insights on WWE Burying Keith Lee on the main roster. And then the other one is from bleedingcool.com. And it's titled that Tommy Dreamer explains why WWE sent Keith Lee back to wrestling school. So I wanted to bring this subject back up. I know last week all three of you guys was sold, and you still may be sold on the idea that this was a positive thing that happened to Keith and Otis and Omos, and there was one more going back to the PC.
Isn't it Baba Booey?
No, not Baba Booey. Was it Baba Dongo? What is
Baba
yes.
Tunde?
Baba Donde.
Right.
It work on his name.
Yeah. And so we talked about that, and again, I'm going to find out where you guys still stand. I kind of looked at that as a possible demotion, but let's kind of read what these guys kind of said about this. Going first from bleedingcool.com, and I'm not reading everything that Tommy, because Tommy was all over the place when you actually read the article. But he says for Keith Lee, when he came up, he was plucked out of the system too soon. He really was. For NXT, they did a disservice by pulling him out of NXT too soon, because then he comes up, he has done nothing of merit or value since he's been called up. That's not on him. That's on creative. But then, yes, if there are holes in his game that your boss, coach see, then yeah, you're not going to get used. And so you have to, like we were talking about Carmella, they're going to make him go away and be forgotten so he comes back with more oomph. I saw holes in his game as well. I saw this as not the same Keith Lee I saw in NXT. Why? Like I say, for a lot of reasons. And I tell the nation this. Okay. And now you're okay. So that was it for that. That was the end of this quote. Because again, Tommy's just a weird talker.
But he made some good points in that article, though.
Okay. So then we come over here to essentially sports.com. And the author started off by saying that Keith Lee had suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of Miz and John Morrison on that Raw on December 12th. However, this might be another way of dragging a feud forward, but a decision straight from Vince McMahon. And according to Vince Russo, McMahon has already decided to send Keith Lee, Otis, and other superstars back to the performance centers. As per him, they were not ready to be on Raw or SmackDown. This is what he said. Russo. Here's the fascinating thing to me, okay? We read earlier in the week that Keith Lee was sent back to NXT for training during the week. So when I'm seeing Keith Lee get beat here, this is them taking Keith Lee down a few pegs. I know how it works. Quote, this guy thinks he's too highly of himself. Let's take him down a few pegs. Then the article says, now Keith Lee's moving from WWE NXT could have been avoided if Vince McMahon gave the gold and black brand similar importance. And then Russo says, here's my question, and think about this for a second, which blows my mind. Now, bro, when I worked with Vince, Vince did not watch ECW. Vince did not watch WCW. It was WWE 24/7. He never watched a competing product. I'm just getting blown away because now Vince is sending Keith Lee back to NXT because Vince is deeming that he's not ready. Okay, so then my question is, then why was he brought up in the first place? Which leads me to the answer, Vince never seen him work at NXT. So I understand you don't watch ECW, but in NXT, it's WWE, bro. It ain't WCW. This is your minor league company. Bro, he's not watching it. For you to bring this guy up and deem he's not ready and needs to go back down, you weren't watching him. And pretty much the article then says that let's not forget that WWE NXT has talent that is being widely spoken about in WWE Universe. If McMahon does not pay expert attention to it, there are companies waiting to snag the superstars. So, fellas, we're back at this topic again. But do you feel the same that you feel last week, that this is really just a positive for Keith Lee going back to the PC Center? Or could it be really looked at that it is a demotion because of how Vince McMahon sees him at this particular moment? And does Vince McMahon play a role in this as well if he's not watching the product? Let's go over to you, Simon Street, on this one. What's your take when you compare both? You have Tommy Dreamer going, look, you know, first off, it's definitely on creative part, but he has done, I think he said he had, I lost my article. Oh, right here. He says he has done nothing of merit or value since he's been caught up. And that's on creative. What would you say on that, Simon Street?
Well, I definitely say he actually has a point. And even further in the article, because he was all over the place.
Yeah.
He had talked about at the very end, see if I can actually quote it to give it justice. He basically said, so there you have it, folks. Keith Lee was sent back to wrestling school because Tommy Dreamer could body slam Big Show. God damn it. It made sense when I read that part because yes, Vince McMahon is a part of that. Vince McMahon has people he wants to move in the direction he wants to move in. And you had mentioned earlier in the other article that Keith Lee was brought down a peg because he thought too high of stuff. I don't know if that had to do with how he feels, but I know us in the WWE universe, whether you watch NXT or if you just watch, you know, Raw in general, we knew Keith Lee was going to be something big when, and I can't remember the pay-per-view, but he came out, I think it was Royal Rumble. I could be mistaken. He came out Royal Rumble and he had a stare down. Was it with Roman Reigns? Was it Roman Reigns?
Lesnar.
It was Lesnar.
I'm not, thank you, Lesnar. And he had a showdown with Lesnar and showed no intimidation. First off, that's when Vince McMahon probably first saw him. Let's just be completely fucking honest. Because he never watched anything he fucking did in NXT at all, or even beyond that. Because if he did, he would have known how to get with creative and book him in a certain way that wasn't going to interfere with whatever plans he had. Vince McMahon has made this same troubling, baffling decision-making skills with NXT talent for the fucking longest. And if you like NXT, you're fucking sick and tired of it. Now, do I still think, going back from what you asked last week, I still think it's a positive because anybody who's willing to take the time to go back down, do whatever your boss is asking you to do, and you stay in the game, eventually you're going to reap the rewards as long as you're not injured or off the shelf.
But that still doesn't look like a demotion to you.
I don't think it's so much a big demotion because it's Keith Lee. Otis is who I would be worried about if you're asking me about Otis. I would be a little worried about Otis because he's someone who doesn't, I mean, at least in the WWE universe's fans' eyes, doesn't have a great upside. You know, it hasn't been defined yet. There's potential. We're entertained. We don't know how big it could be. I know how big Keith Lee can be. A lot of people who are fans probably feel the same way. So it's not a bad thing. And yeah, some of it is on creative.
Let me ask you this. Let me jump over to you, Matt, because normally I go to you, since I'm going to hold you for last this time because I saw you kind of reacting to what Simon Street was saying. But I do want to know, do you still feel the same as well as your thoughts were for last week, that it's not a demotion? But would you agree with what you've been hearing? First off, according to Tommy, that he has done nothing of merit or value since he's been caught up. And yes, that is on creative. That's A. And at the same time, you have Russo looking at it saying, hey, Vince, I don't know why he doesn't look at the product. NXT is WWE. He should have seen if there were some issues before then. He should have caught that before they even brought him up as well. But he also mentions, and this is just probably Russo just throwing extra something in, saying, hey, this guy thinks he's too highly of himself. Let's take him down a few pegs. I don't know how much of that could be true. That's a little bit talking. but he probably has a point on the other one we mentioned. So what would be your take on this? And and what's your thoughts from what you said last week, also to compare what we're talking about now?
I think why the fuck are we still talking about this? That's what it comes down to. I think that the reason that these guys brought it up is just to get their fucking, their shit out there, the names in the, the dirt sheets or whatever. It's as simple as this. How have they been demoted? They're still on the fucking shows. Period. I mean, for God's sakes, AJ still has his fucking bodyguard. If one person needs to be quote unquote demoted, it's that motherfucker, right? Because he ain't even shown anything in the ring. Number two, Keith Lee, first, having not apparently done anything of noteworthy value, was thrown into the motherfucking title picture right away when he was wrestling Drew and Randy for God knows how many weeks. That felt like it was 19 weeks, but it was like the first fucking 4 weeks he was on the show. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Not everyone can go up and become Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins or fucking Daniel Bryan or these guys who are fucking over to the point, Randy Orton, where they will never, be down from the pedestal. The fact of the matter is that, listen, Vince doesn't like bitch tits. Fair and simple, and that's what he's seeing. Keith Lee, no shirt. Who the fuck's that guy with no shirt on? He probably thought it was Mark Henry, to be honest, because that's it. That's, Vince's thing. What I was alluding to earlier, when we talked on Wrestling Talk, the fact of the matter is they try to say that Keith Lee losing the match to Miz and Morrison was him getting buried and being sent down. He's not being buried, and neither is the other guy being quote unquote sent down, Otis, who fucking won on SmackDown. So fucking shut the fuck up, people. Unless you goddamn know what the fuck you're talking about. And Vince Russo is, as much as I like the guy, he's been a nice guy to me and everything. The fact of the matter is he is the one who says that he doesn't want to be in the wrestling game. He doesn't pay attention to wrestling, etc., etc. He has a point. Vince likes to take people down a peg. All right. It's happened with every fucking buddy. Everyone. It's how Keith Lee bounces back from that. That's Vince's test. All right. Everyone fucking goes through it. But the fact of the matter is Keith Lee is not the future of your company. He's an older guy. DJ, he's catching up to you soon. So
damn, that's bad.
Calling me, man, fuck you.
Got Impact to say the F word. Wow. Holy shit.
That was beautiful. Man. Greatest hits, Vegas Bad Boys, expletives. We putting that motherfucker on there.
Yeah,
I would have left that out if you didn't agree with it, Simon. Yeah.
Love you, man.
That's it. It's like you're talking about a couple of people who are literally going in the city they're living in right now anyway to their training center for extra sessions in the ring. How the fuck is that hurting anyone? It's not. This is ridiculous, man. This is only a hot topic because of the assumed presumption that that if any of these guys are let go, they're going to go to another company and they're going to be megastars. What the fuck, man? The truth. What?
I said that might not necessarily be the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's been tons of people that left WWE. And hey, look, the grass wasn't green; it was just poison ivy.
All right. So
the only one who's been successful so far, really in AEW, is Moxley, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then if you look around the circuit, really, Chris Jericho has his own name established for many, many years, which really doesn't, WWE is just part of that legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't off the top of my head think of someone else I can go.
Spears flatline. What's his
Who?
name? Oh,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Huh?
He was a perfect 10.
Yeah, he was a perfect 10
Out of 100.
Jesus.
Good point. Out of 100.
Yeah, man. I think this is just, you know.
let,
And by the way, I just want to
Mhm.
finish. That he wasn't tying this shit to Tommy Dreamer's point at the end or whatever that Tommy was making. He was being fucking sarcastic, is how I read it. As
he was. The
point
writer
of this
was.
was,
Yeah.
Simon was, just kind of saying essentially that, Tommy's point was being made. It wasn't. Tommy had no point.
Well, I think the only reason why I said that is because at the end of the day, I remember when he slammed the Big Show and people made a big fucking deal out of it.
No, you don't. You don't, because it was on a house show.
Yeah, it was on a house show. It
was
still got taped. It was on the internet.
No, it wasn't.
On a scratchy ass fucking phone, a flip phone, you can see shit. I'm gonna go pull that shit up and bring it to you.
You can, but for you to say that is a remembered thing.
Well, okay, not a personal memory like I was fucking there. I wasn't fucking there, but I remember seeing that shit on the internet. I remember that a long time ago. Back when it was important, someone slammed the Big Show.
And then good. I'm glad it got over with you.
Well, there's one.
Let me jump over to you, Sin City. So if this is really true that Vince doesn't seem, for whatever reason, doesn't watch NXT, and this has always been what was being said, is that a problem then? Because shouldn't he not have seen this possibly going to happen, and he could have worked on this before it even? I mean, the reality of it is, it's not like we read a lot of articles where we read many people are going back to the PC. We know people still work out of it, but we don't get the article showing that there's a list of people that are made to go back. So
but there hasn't been a situation where they could, because they've always been on the road. That's what I've been saying for the last 2 weeks. This is a non-story.
Okay. Back to you, Sin City. Yeah. What's your take on this whole thing?
I think that it's a slow news cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, not to piggyback off of what Matt said, but realistically speaking, it's not a demotion until he is on the NXT brand. And it sucks that I have to refer to that as a demotion. Because in most fans' eyes, that would be a promotion. But at the end of the day, he's making more money on the main roster because of merch money and, the guarantees that are in place when you're on the main roster. So he's making more money than if he was in NXT. And realistically, with his age, as Matt said, he's not a spring chicken. I mean, he's been around for a while. At this point, he really should just focus on making money, developing a strong name for himself, and crafting a legacy that he can be proud of. But the thing is that is absolutely transparent with this is that it was way too soon for him to be moved up. A lot of people, when he was moved up, they were like, oh my God, it's amazing. He's being called to the main roster after such a little time. And I was really trepidatious about it because I saw this shit coming from a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
Vince doesn't watch NXT. He's never watched NXT. That's obvious in anybody that he's ever utilized that developed a character and got over on the NXT brand.
Mm-hmm.
There are hardly any people that have worked extremely well on the main roster that were over in NXT. And, as fans, we can get deluded with this because we think, oh, well, he's going to be going back to NXT. This is the end of the world. He's not going back to NXT until he actually shows up on the black and gold brand. Then he's going to be on the main roster. He's going to be a Raw superstar or whatever the hell it is until they choose to make that move. And we'll see what happens. But I mean, people just need to stop jumping to conclusions on this shit.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, hey, look, his girlfriend even got brought up because he was up there. She got shoved in one of the most shit type of gimmicks that you can get shoved into. And the fact of the matter is that, hey, man, they're on the brand together. Also, we keep referring to just Keith Lee.
Yeah,
That is also mind blowing.
Gongo.
Yeah, but the big thing is Otis. Otis was down there.
Yep.
Heavy Machinery was a tag team that was very popular, you know, and they got brought up. They went through the use of the cycle. They decide they're going to break these guys up so they can utilize them. No one's saying shit about Tucky.
Yep. We ain't seen Tucky for what, 3 weeks?
He's about to be
yeah,
finished endeavored.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time Tucky was in the ring, it was in that fucking battle royal that was like 2 weeks ago. And the fact of the matter is Otis is at least got something going on, and so that means that Vince actually sees something in these guys, or else why the fuck would he even want to put time into these guys?
Exactly.
Because he would just shelf them.
That was the point that I made last week when we talked about this.
And the final thing I think on this too that is nowhere in these articles, and if it is a slow news cycle, and they should have fucking included this at least, and that is very simple. Matt Riddle is on the verge of signing a big contract. And guess what? Matt Riddle has had the same success that Keith Lee's had being brought up. The difference, Matt Riddle don't have bitch tits. That's Matt Riddle is a guy that Vince can look at and go, hey, you know, he's a white guy who says, bro, give him money. Me? Oh.
And you know what's so funny though? I didn't catch it because I'm a little slow. In the article that you gave us, Impact, from Bleeding Cool, they show Keith Lee, free Keith Lee's tits. Hashtag freak. I was like, why has he got? Where did Impact get this? Why we can't see the man's chest? But it goes with what the whole article really was alluding to.
Which is ironic because Vince loves big black titties, those chocolate titties.
But not when they attach to a man, apparently.
Well,
okay, we're not gonna get into that because
right.
I ain't got money for all that.
Well, that was a great session. All right, guys.
All right, I'm glad we got that out of our session.
Say our good nights. All right.
Oh, and by the way, guys, please, when you go get your mail today, just know that you're going to be knocked down a couple of pegs on your professionalism when you go to the mail to go get it, okay? Because that's basically how much they're walking probably to go from the main roster back to the PC probably.
No.
All right, so we just got a run-in topic. A run-in topic just came in right now. I can't believe it. We haven't had a run-in in a minute, guys, and it happens to be from the New York Times, and it happens to be a little bit something different. Not so much wrestling, but a little bit more on video games. So this should be pretty interesting. It's titled Cyberpunk 2077, what's supposed to be the biggest video game of the year. What happened? Bottom line from this, apparently this game is full of glitches. They've had 10 years to work on this game that they've been promoting. Over 8 million people pre-ordered this game. And apparently if you have a console, the newer ones or even the old school ones, it is not working correctly. CD Projekt Red, I guess they are. Listen, I guess before this game they put out another game that was called The Witcher.
Yes.
And apparently this game was said to be very buggy and stuff with more features than it could support.
Wait, you're talking about Cyberpunk or Witcher?
I just jumped over to Witcher. They apparently these are the guys that made Cyberpunk made Witcher. Yeah. So yeah, I'm jumping over to Witcher. This was their first game that was released too. And the whole point of them saying it was that this game that they made, the very first one, was also very buggy. And of course, this is what is being placed in the article is what I'm reading from. So and it talks about a lot of the former employees who worked on the game, saying, first off, it would take 3 to 5 minutes to load basic screens. Again, and as you see, Simon Street, even he's got a bug in his screen because it's back to green again. But what you have here, a lot of employees, apparently he's been just speaking out in general. This seems to be PlayStation and Xbox has been giving back refunds on this game, tons of refunds. This was supposed to be the game. They even had Keanu Reeves as being a major Hollywood star that was promoting, and I even think maybe there's a character in the game with him that
he is the in the game.
Okay, okay. So and again, it talks about the delays. About this was it was supposed to come out on September 17th. And then it got pushed over and now into November 19th, and then it got pushed to December. So there was definitely a lot of still bugs and things that was still trying to be worked out. So I don't know, guys. First off, we have 2 gaming experts and analysts here on our panel who can maybe give us a little bit more insight on what they believe kind of happened with this game. And and just find out what the hell happened and where do you think they go from here? Because if this game was as big as they're saying that it is, and it's become this epic fail, I mean, this is just not a good look on the company. I think I've even read that there was some possible litigations that could contemplating a class action lawsuit against the company for what one attorney described as a potential criminal quote misrepresentation in order to receive financial benefits end quote. I mean, that's a lot coming on to this. Gamers, what would you guys say about this entire topic if you've been reading up on what's been happening since this game's been out a week now?
Street, you want to take it?
I'll take it. All right, so first off, hot 1.05 fix just came out, okay, and that was as of today. Fixes a lot of the regular bugs, okay? But that's not what the big issue is, really, if you really look at it with this Cyberpunk game where the litigation possibly comes in. The big litigation is because, let's just put the facts in. It was promoted to be a fully operable game for PlayStation 4 and Xbox, the past generations now, past generation consoles, not the new PlayStation 5 or the new Xbox. Okay, because it was presented that way, tons of people, and I believe if I remember looking at a couple of articles when I do research, about a good 60 to 70 percentile of the people who pre-ordered the game, it means they paid for the game before it was released, were primarily PlayStation 4 and Xbox. Is it Xbox Series X, Stincy Steve's Xbox Series X, which the game is not operable at all.
Well, it's not. Well, also PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox.
That is incorrect. New York Times is incorrect. It does have bugs because there's 2 problems with the game right now. Okay, there is the bugs, which comes with most games anyways. Okay, I have the game on PC, and even though it runs for the most part operable, 100% almost, there's still bugs. That comes with the territory of bugs. That's not the biggest problem with Cyberpunk. The biggest problem is you put a game that already was huge just to begin with. It was meant to be on PlayStation 5. Well, first of all, it was meant to be on PC, okay, high-end PC to play it at what it was made for, PlayStation 5, and the new Xbox that's come out. The hardware that's with those 3 platforms I mentioned can handle the game, and it will still have bugs, okay? That's expected. That's why you have video games, no matter what you play, have these patches. They call them hot fixes to fix these. And will regularly be doled out to be fixed. Now, getting back to what I was saying before, the big problem is if you look at the marketing push towards Cyberpunk, it was pushed that you can buy Cyberpunk and majority of people that have PlayStation 4 and have Xbox can play this game. So majority of the people that reserved a copy, paid for it ahead of time, had this. When the game came out, you could not play it. Frame drops were horrible. You can't say that the game's supposed to be on the PlayStation. It was even worse than 30 frames per second. Most games, for the most part, unless they're like special cases, 30 frames per second. And that's how fast, for people who don't play video games, how fast something moves while you're playing, okay? Frame drops were horrible. The graphic integrity of the game was piss poor, even for a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox 5.
So the only thing I can say about that, Simon Street, I get what you're saying. You're talking about older systems, PlayStation 4, and listen, in the article, it says, while developers have created a functioning game for PC users. So you're right, PC is where it's at. Cyberpunk was glitchy and crashed frequently on next generation consoles like the PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox devices.
And
Even worse, the game barely ran on older consoles like PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So many people are not playing these games on PC. They're playing them on console, the brand new ones or the old ones.
Well, that's what I said. That's exactly what I said. Again, I'm correcting the facts because they don't have the correct facts. Okay. Majority of people that have it on PlayStation 5 and Xbox, that number is significantly fewer because they're streaming right, not PC players. You go to Twitch, you go to Facebook Live. A lot of them are PlayStation 5 users because they got the game after buying a PlayStation 5 and they're streaming just fine.
So is your argument? Are you arguing then that this is really not a glitchy game? You know, it comes with some, but you can expect that. But this is really just taken out of.
No, it's not taken out of context. There's some really serious, and if you listen to what I said earlier, there's some really serious implications because again, when the game first came out, or when the game was first talked about coming out and had a release date, their marketing strategy was to push it. PlayStation 4, Xbox, the generation before that, PlayStation 5 came out and Xbox came out. So many of the people owned those consoles, obviously. The Xbox 5, the new Xbox and the PlayStation just came out, 3 weeks ago. So pushed 2-3 months. That's where the fault is. That's where now, if you own PlayStation 4, you bought it, you're not getting a refund. You got to take the company. PlayStation is taking it off of their marketplace for you to buy it if it's PlayStation 4. Xbox, almost similar thing. And so that's where the litigation problem comes from. I wanted to separate this article because you're going to have every game. Any game you have is going to have glitches. This is normal. There's a patch that can be worked out. You don't have to buy a new game. You just have to be connected to the internet and it fixes it patch-wise.
Let me just go over to you, Sin City. Games come out all the time.
Yep.
All right. What happened here? Like, how could this happen? I mean, you have not only have designers, but you have testers, and they test these things daily, weekly, monthly, and they've been doing this for years. Up to they had to make delays up to 4 months, even before up to releasing it last week, and it still had issues. Why then still push this out if they still was having, you know, these bug issues that's being talked about?
We all know the reason why this game was pushed out. Money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I do have to mention something.
Okay.
The link that you sent over that this article was in was a New York Times article, which for me, I don't know about for you guys, but for me, it was behind a paywall. And I'm not going to pay the New York Times to be able to read any of their articles, especially with the amazing journalism as with what Simon had mentioned, correcting some of the things that they said in the article. And if it was also mentioned that The Witcher 3 was a buggy game, if that was something that was mentioned in the New York Times article, that's another example of it. The Witcher 3 was probably one of the greatest games that I've ever played, period. End of story. CD Projekt Red is a great company. And to be honest with you, when I heard about all of these bugs and when I saw some of the videos and all of the proof, because obviously it's everywhere on the internet, I was completely surprised that this project, long story short, The Witcher did extremely well. The Witcher 3 did extremely well to where it warranted them releasing 2 expansion packs for that game. And then that game is obviously spawned the TV series on Netflix, the popularity of The Witcher 3, that game specifically helped to launch the Witcher series on Netflix. So when they mentioned that they were going to focus their efforts on not releasing another Witcher game, but instead that they would be releasing Cyberpunk, obviously I had to take notice of it. Now, if you look at the game itself, visually, it's absolutely gorgeous. It is a completely beautiful game. However, the gameplay trips over its own feet. There are, people that people and mobs and things of that nature that will spawn on screen and then glitch over to a completely different area. There are loading issues. As Simon had mentioned, there are frame delay issues. So it is only affecting the consoles. It is not affecting PC whatsoever right now. I think that's something that's very telling. And
well, it's kind of even misleading a little bit from it, because also the article said that, I guess before the games come out, they give they give these games out for people to kind of play and view.
Alpha and beta testers.
Right. Apparently, they didn't give them any console games. Leading up to this, they only gave them the PC versions of these games. So that made it very difficult to also give a review,
And I think the thing that is extremely telling is the fact that the issues are only appearing on the console versions of these games. So as Simon had mentioned as well, they're going to be releasing some bug fixes, some hot fixes, some patches to take care of these things. Yes, at launch, it's less than optimal to say the very least. But realistically, that's 2020, man. Honestly, that is everything has just been a giant clusterfuck this year. Well, so this does not surprise me whatsoever. Now the litigation, I think that could be very, very troubling if that actually materializes. The reason being is because now you will have, at the slightest hint of a bug in a game, you're going to have people that will, try to throw out class action lawsuits because everybody's trying to make a buck. And I think that it could really set a dangerous precedent if that stuff continues.
And also too, Sin City, the article didn't really tell it, but I know when I was researching, because we had a conversation about this, a lot of that has more to do with the misleading of the marketing push.
Yes.
It's not the actual game. And so thankfully, we us gamers don't want that to where there's a bug. And then if someone could say, cry wolf, shit, man, we'll have games delayed indefinitely because almost every game that comes out now has bugs. Even the great Nintendo, if it's a Nintendo game that comes out, it has bugs. That's a normal part of gaming life.
CD Projekt Red, the studio behind Cyberpunk 2077, didn't release a statement about the removal until hours later, and it took even longer for them to tweet something to players. In the meantime, CD Projekt Red's stock dropped by more than 20%, a loss of $1.8 billion. I don't know. This seemed like this is just not a good look, because people who want their money back and don't want to have anything to do with it and shove it in it, it could be really a great game, and maybe for PC users, it will be. But going forward, I don't know what type of faith people, at least consoles players, are going to have going forward, even if they put out fixes to this. And I don't know. This is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. There's definitely a lot of disappointed people, I tell you that, because I know I was saying I was in a store and someone saw me and he talked my head off for 20 minutes on how pissed off he was about the game. And
what did he have it on, though? What did he have it on?
I don't know. He didn't tell me.
Guarantee he had it on a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, because the game, when I tell you the game is inoperable, it's like putting like a small diaper on a 360-pound man. Like like it just does not fit on those consoles. And that's why I said the litigation is probably going to be telling once they look, because again, if I tell you, hey, Impact, I got a game for you, it plays for your Nintendo Switch. Okay, you can play it. You get the game and you can't even load it. But if I lied to you and you spent money based on my advice, my marketing strategy, that's wrong. That's false. And then like Cincinnati Steve said, we're gonna see what materializes, because they had Keanu Reeves up there at a couple of conferences specifically saying PlayStation 4, Xbox. Do you see what I'm saying? So again, that's where the trouble is going to be. But I ain't worried about it, because if you think about it, the next Witcher game comes out, they're going to be right back there saying, "Oh, we love them," and they're going to make all that money they lost. Guarantee. Other companies, they can afford to take the hit. Let's put it that way, because game is a whole lot different than wrestling.
Well, I tell you this, there were a lot of, back in the times, there were a lot of people, of course, who worked for the company who did not want to be, want their name out there, really had a lot of things to say that was negative about the business culture of what are they, CD Projekt Red, just overall on how things are ran around the office, what is said and what is done. I mean, they must have talked to 5 or 6 different people, and it looks like they're the owners of these, I guess, 2 gentlemen who started this really need to create a better culture in this gaming or business that they're in, because it seems like it's everyone's feels that it's more push to just get it out than really about creating making sure that the game is complete and ready for it to come out for its players. And it's more of a just push, and we worry about everything else later. And that's what it came down to at the last minute of this. So I don't know. It's very interesting. Go ahead.
One quick thing. If you do look up Witcher, they did have bug problems.
They all did.
Just look it up. It is true they did have bug problems. That's probably where New York Times got their information from, is just by Googling it and looking up the history of it. It wasn't anything as massive as this, but
yeah,
they have a history of doing it. And
also in the article, just to be fair, it says still, after it talked about The Witcher having its issues, it said still the Witcher series gained the studio an early following and a fan base. The studio received the most acclaim for The Witcher 3, which won awards for its detailed universe and rich storytelling. Like earlier titles, it was buggy from the outset. It frustrated players, but most fans accepted what they saw as a kind of test and release culture around CD Projekt Red games, a willingness to put out projects that were not yet problem-free. So that's how they talked about The Witcher 3.
And unfortunately, what happens in the video gaming industry, same thing. It happens with movies and anything, music, anything that has a release date on it.
Yep.
They fucking rush the shit out of a lot of that stuff just to get it out there to make that money. So
yeah,
it's interesting you said that, Michaels, because with this particular case, and I didn't mention earlier, but I probably should have. In order to release a game on any console, you have to go through checkpoints, benchmarks. They have to meet a certain benchmark. And I think that the first initial delay, because this was supposed to come out in October, I think, originally.
September.
Okay. So September. Reason why I got delayed the first time was because I do believe that it probably was not even close to meeting the benchmark on a PlayStation 4, past console level. And I think they made a couple of adjustments to get it to barely pass it. But just because you pass a benchmark doesn't mean you pass the quality that is expected of any game title. The only good thing that games in the game industry we have now moving forward, or just even now in general, is you have these hot fixes. And again, this article, if I were writing this article, I would have pushed harder on the marketing, which was falsely advertised for if you owned a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox, because that was majority. I mean, I think it's now, I'm looking at 68% of the people who bought like pre-owned, like before it came out. That's a lot of people. We're talking about what, a $59 game, 62 and some cents afterwards. It's a lot of people. And to find out that you can't get a refund if you bought it from GameStop, or if you bought it from, anything that wasn't through PlayStation. I think PlayStation is allowing refunds. Xbox, I haven't heard anything on that just yet, but I mean, that's something they have to fix. But Impact,
they're allowing refunds too.
You talked about culture, and that's something that down the road, in some capacity, I know I will be speaking about that one thing that video game industries are facing a lot of, and it even got into our politics, is video game culture, the workload, having people work insurmountable amount of hours to where, it does straddle border, labor laws? It kind of straddles labor laws and also the work quality, a culture that goes into these industries. So maybe at some point you may see, myself and Sin City Steve talk about some issue like that in the future, because that is something that you will continue to see game industries have to restructure the way they run their companies.
Yeah. Well, there you go, fellas. You got a chance to hear a little bit of some gaming news there, and thank you guys for taking a listen to that. We're going to go ahead and end the show. We're going to give our final thoughts, and we'll go from there. So with that, Simon Street, what do you want to tell the people in this Christmas week?
Well, I just want to let everybody know, continue to be safe out there. And even though we may have limitations on how we can spend Christmas and the New Year's together with the increase of COVID numbers, just try and put just as much love and creativity as you can. And, last but not least, wear a mask, but by all means, please wear a condom, because there's a lot of people having COVID pregnancies, and we need to make sure that we're responsible. Enjoy the fun, but wrap it up for the future.
All right. We'll think about that. Well,
I don't think about that, Impact.
I don't have to think about that, but you got to think about that. All
man,
right.
I'm good.
Sin City Steve, man, what do you want to tell people out there, man?
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays,
Yes.
Happy Hanukkah,
Yes.
Happy Kwanzaa,
Yes.
Happy Festivus, whatever it is that you celebrate.
Yes. Winter solstice,
all of the above. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We definitely appreciate it. And we definitely want to give a special shout out, especially during this time, to all of our courageous men and women serving this country, either on foreign land or domestic, and especially to our boy, the Stormin' Mormon. We love you, brother. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you soon stateside. Also, repsports.com. Go there for all of your pre-workout, weight loss, and energy drink needs. Rep Sports, REPP sports.com. Use promo code Vegas at the checkout. Save yourself 15%. We'll see you.
All right, Matt Michaels.
Well, I did a little research here to kind of figure out why Keith Lee actually did get this demotion or request to kind of get back into the performance center, and it's well, it was shocking. It's because of this.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, that is long and blacked out.
Yeah. So just
Guys,
what does he call that? Does he call that thing a spirit bomb or a spirit pole?
Yeah. For all of our viewers, we
now that we're demonetized on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, and everywhere else that this show appears.
Yep. Good job, Michaels.
but the podcast listeners, they have to look this up to see it.
Are you going to give the link for what we're looking at?
They need to watch the video.
No, go to YouTube, watch our show, and right here at this point,
if it's still there.
Oh, it'll still be there. There's nothing wrong here. It's blacked out.
Apparently, it's black.
I hope you, while we were talking video games, you wasn't over here editing and cutting and pasting, Matt.
Damn well he was.
Yeah, he was. Hey, but you know what's funny about video games is Cyberpunk has some of the best sex scenes that even Pornhub started stealing their sex scenes to put on. I'm not even joking, bro. Like,
okay, folks, that's why we're called the Bad Boys, because you may hear something, you may see something. We're living up to that name. With that, Matt Michaels was trying to say Merry Christmas to you all, and to all a good night.
Well, that fit the